did you see the latest UConn game against Notre Dame? It was UConn's first loss of the season, and Geno Auriemma isn't taking it well. He's furious, especially since fans called his team and his star, Paige Bueckers, overrated. Let's rewind a bit. Geno Auriemma just became the winningest coach in college basketball history. But his last championship, 2016, his most recent headline calling out Caitlin Clark is current star player Paige underperforming.
You gotta take some of the pressure off of Paige. Sometimes she's her worst enemy and she over-penetrates to try to get something in traffic and get to the free throw line and blah, blah, blah. If you're gonna play her the way they played her, which I think is what she's gonna see a lot of.
Something doesn't add up. Are we witnessing the fall of a basketball legend? Is he setting up Paige for failure? And is Ariana's criticism of generational talent like Clark just sour grapes? Stick around as we unpack the decline of college basketball's most decorated coach.
Like I said earlier, they actually had odds that, she was like third or fourth in the betting odds to be MVP of the WNBA. That's such a slap in the face to every WNBA player. It's unbelievable, right?
Picture this. It's 2016. Geno Auriemma is on top of the world. He's just led UConn to their fourth straight national championship with star player Breanna Stewart. His team is unstoppable. His legacy unquestionable. Fast forward to today, and the landscape looks very different. For decades, Akiyama was the king of women's college basketball. His UConn Huskies were a dynasty like no other. 11 national titles, countless conference championships, a parade of All-Americans and WNBA stars. Ariana's name was synonymous with success.
He will likely always have, as long as he's coaching, the greatest talent that is in women's basketball. And we've seen Stewie come out of there, we've seen Nafisa, the list goes on and on, Maya Moore, the list of UConn stars are endless. He will always get that talent.
But here's where things get interesting. Since that 2016 championship, UConn hasn't cut down the nets not once. 7 years without a title might not sound like much for most programs, but for UConn, it's practically a drought. So, what happened? Has Auriemma lost his touch? It's starting to look that way. His once innovative coaching style now seems stuck in the past. While other programs are evolving, embracing new offensive schemes and defensive strategies. UConn looks well, old school, and the results speak for themselves. UConn's recent performances have been shocking, to say the least. Remember that loss to Notre Dame? A lower-ranked team managed to take down the mighty Huskies, which supposedly boasts the best college player in the nation. It wasn't just a fluke either. UConn has been stumbling more and more, looking vulnerable in games they used to dominate.
We need other contributions, and Paige is going to try to carry the team by herself when she thinks there aren't a lot of those contributions. And that's not good for her, and that's not good for us.
You have to wonder, is this the beginning of the end for Ariana's dynasty? The cracks are starting to show. Players who once flocked to UConn are now choosing other programs. The aura of invincibility is fading. But here's the twist. In the midst of all this uncertainty, Ariana just achieved something remarkable. He became the winningest coach in college basketball history. It's an incredible milestone that cements his place in the record books. Yet it feels bittersweet, because while Ariana's career win total keeps climbing, his team's performance on the court tells a different story. They're not the dominant force they once were. They're not striking fear into opponents like they used to.
Geno Auriemma, Caitlin Clark again. The world turns. It's Caitlin Clark's world. We just live on planet Caitlin.
So we're left with a paradox, a coach reaching the pinnacle of individual achievement, While his program shows signs of decline, it's a fascinating moment in basketball history, watching a legend grapple with a changing landscape. But there's more to this story than just wins and losses. To truly understand what's happening with UConn and Auriemma, we need to look closer at the players, specifically one player who was supposed to be the next big thing.
Paige Bueckers has been front and center in the women's basketball media landscape. There is so much hype around her, and a lot of people have a microscope on her and the UConn Huskies. A lot of people are expecting Paige to win her first national title this year with UConn before she does declare for the WNBA.
What happens when a talented player meets an outdated system? Paige Bueckers arrived at UConn with sky-high expectations, but her recent performances have left fans scratching their heads. Is it possible that the very program that made her a star is now holding her back?
With Paige Bueckers and the UConn Huskies front and center this season in women's basketball, some fans are starting to question Geno Auriemma's coaching style and wondering if it's truly what's best for Paige.
Let's rewind to 2020. Paige Bueckers was the talk of women's basketball. She shone bright in high school courts, averaging nearly 23 points per game, and leading her team to a state championship in Minnesota. The hype was real. Bueckers even snagged the Naismith High School Player of the Year award. Everyone knew she was destined for greatness.
Paige is having a good season so far. I don't think it's her greatest performance or her greatest season so far, and she's struggled in a couple of these games.
And at first, it looked like Bueckers was living up to all that promise. Her freshman year at UConn, absolutely electric. She put up 20 points, almost 6 assists and 5 rebounds per game. Bueckers wasn't just good. She was carrying the team to deep college tournament appearances. It seemed like UConn had found their next superstar. But then something changed this year. Bueckers' stats have taken a nosedive. Sure, she's still putting up points, 18.9 per game this season, but there seems to be something off, especially in big games. Take the Holy Cross game. Bueckers, the player who was supposed to dominate, managed just 11 points against Louisville. Even worse, only 8 points for a player of her caliber. These performances are raising some serious red flags.
So Geno Auriemma surprisingly, for lack of a better way of describing it, called out Paige Bueckers. And yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, kind of doing it almost out of the blue in a halftime team talk. And you would have thought maybe it's something to kind of spur her on. It did not do that.
So what's going on? Basketball analysts have some theories. One big issue they're pointing to is Bueckers' lack of aggression on the court. She's playing passive, deferring to teammates instead of taking control. It's like she's lost that instinct that made her so special. But here's where it gets interesting. Is this all on Bueckers? Or is there something else at play? Some are starting to wonder if Auriemma's system might be the problem. His old school approach worked wonders for years. But the game has evolved. Is it possible that his rigid style is actually stifling Bueckers' natural talents?
He basically said, well, Paige just likes to stand around. She's not really aggressive and she's not going to go after the ball. So that's just what Paige likes to do. He kind of threw her under the bus. And a lot of fans are starting to notice that Geno says a lot of things to the media about his team, about his players that are starting to rub certain people the wrong way.
Auriemma himself has hinted at Bueckers' untapped potential. He said there are practice days where she shoots 75% from the floor and up to 60% from three-point range. Those are incredible numbers. So why aren't we seeing that same efficiency in games? It's starting to look like Bueckers might be a square peg trying to fit into Ariana's round hole. Her pass-first mentality and efficiency-focused game don't quite mesh with the aggressive, dominant style UConn built its dynasty on. And while Bueckers is still leading the team in scoring that spark, that ability to take over a game at will seems to be missing.
If Geno's coaching style is affecting Paige Bueckers and the trajectory of her career and has maybe halted her a little bit in becoming the best player that she can possibly become.
The Paige Bueckers puzzle is far from solved. But as we watch her struggle to reach her full potential, it's hard not to wonder if UConn's system is part of the problem. Are we witnessing a clash between old-school coaching and new-school talent?
Not only his players that need to perform well to get this championship, I think that he might need to change his tune a little bit and adapt a little bit to the new age style of women's basketball.
While Bueckers and UConn try to figure things out, there's another story unfolding because across the country, another young star is showing exactly what can happen when talent meets the right system. If you've made it this far and are enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. We know watching this video takes some of your time, and we appreciate you. Now back to the action.
That's the worst part about new fans. You know, they have no perspective. There's no context. So they just say ridiculous nonsense.
While one star struggles, another shines brighter than ever. Remember when Geno Auriemma said Caitlin Clark's game wouldn't translate to the WNBA? Well, he's probably wishing he could eat those words right about now. Oh, wait. He just did. On live TV, the
college career that Caitlin had ignited a tremendous amount of attention, an incredible phenomenon that very rarely happens, and it certainly changed the landscape, no question.
Before Clark even stepped foot on a WNBA court, Auriemma was quick to dismiss her potential impact. He claimed her style of play wouldn't work at the pro level. He even went as far as to say her fans were delusional about her prospects. Talk about a cold take.
It's funny to listen to the fever management moan about physical fouls whenever and anytime I moan about the game being too physical. There's always somebody on that staff saying that I'm so what goes around comes around.
Fast forward to Clark's debut season, and it's clear who the delusional one was. Clark didn't just adapt to the WNBA, she dominated it. Let's break down her insane rookie campaign. We're talking 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. That's not just good for a rookie, that's a lead for any player in the league. But Clark wasn't done there. She shattered records left and right, 62 to be exact. She dished out 337 assists, setting a new single-season WNBA record as a rookie. She knocked down 122 three-pointers, another rookie record. And just for good measure, she became the first rookie in WNBA history to record not one, but 2 triple-doubles. And it wasn't just the fans taking notice. Clark's peers in the WNBA were quick to sing her praises. Even Paige Bueckers herself had to give credit where it was due. Bueckers said,
Caitlin brought so much new attention to the rise in women's college basketball and the WNBA and women's sports in general. I feel like the weight of the world is on her shoulders, and she just has this heavy burden to carry, and she does it with grace and humility.
So how wrong could one legendary coach be? Turns out pretty darn wrong. Clark's rookie season wasn't just impressive, it was historic. She finished 4th in the MVP race, made the All-WNBA first team, and of course, took home Rookie of the Year honors. Not bad for a player whose game supposedly wouldn't translate, huh? Clark's success does more than just prove Auriemma wrong. it exposes a fundamental flaw in his thinking. The women's game has evolved, and Clark represents the new wave of talent reshaping basketball and her ability to score from anywhere, her court vision, and her flair for the dramatic. These are the skills driving the sport forward.
Wants to know, if Caitlin Clark played for Geno, would he let her shoot logo threes?
Should I answer that?
Go ahead.
Hell no. Okay. Like, he didn't even let us dribble. Like,
not thigh passes to the side.
We were playing triangle, pass, screen away, pinch post.
I bet we came off five pick and rolls our whole career.
But here's the thing. Clark's story is just beginning. As impressive as her rookie season was, it feels like she's only scratched the surface of her potential. And that should have the rest of the league shaking in their sneakers.
I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I feel like there's just so many areas that I want to improve in and to continue to get in the gym and work on that every single day.
As Clark dazzles fans and confounds critics, a once unshakable basketball dynasty finds itself on unfamiliar ground. What happens when the innovators of yesterday become the roadblocks of today? Geno Auriemma built UConn into a powerhouse. For years, his program was the gold standard in women's college basketball. But as the game evolves, is Ariana's old-school approach holding the sport back?
However, times are much different than they were when Geno started coaching. One, I don't think it's the greatest look for him to continue to say some of these things in the media, especially with the kind of spotlight that is on Paige right now. And I do think that some of the spotlight that's on her and some of the pressure that a lot of media people have put on her is unwarranted. I don't think it's fair. She's a great player, but I think all of the comparisons and things that we've heard and people trying to make her Caitlin Clark when she's not.
Let's look at the facts. Women's basketball is changing fast. Players like Caitlin Clark aren't just breaking records. They're reshaping how the game is played. Clark's long-range shooting and flashy passes have fans glued to their screens. She's not alone either. A new generation of players is pushing the boundaries of what's possible on the court. And guess what? Fans are loving it. The WNBA is seeing record attendance and viewership. Clark's rookie season with the Indiana Fever was a big part of that. She's not just attracting hardcore basketball fans. She's bringing in new viewers who might never have watched a game before.
We're bringing more and more fans to this league, people that have maybe never watched the WNBA before, and it kind of takes your breath away at points.
But here's the thing. This surge in popularity isn't just happening at the pro level. Women's college basketball is booming. And it's not just the traditional powerhouses drawing attention. Teams from smaller schools are making waves, playing an exciting brand of basketball that's catching people's eyes. So where does that leave coaches like Auriemma? Well, the smart ones are adapting. They're embracing a more dynamic, fast-paced style of play. They're letting their players showcase their skills instead of forcing them into rigid systems. It's all about flexibility and player-centric coaching now.
Doesn't necessarily seem to be pushing the right buttons with Paige. Again, we don't know what's going on in the locker room and they might have a great relationship. However, Paige is in the UConn system that has been set in place since the 90s. There is a certain system of UConn basketball and the players that come into that fit into that system, and you have to have a certain mindset, a certain skill set, a certain whatever. It is a well-oiled machine and it has worked.
But Auriemma, he seems stuck in his ways. His structured approach that worked wonders in the past now looks outdated while other teams are spacing the floor and launching threes. UConn often looks like it's playing a different game,
But until recently, there are teams. Iowa beat them in the Final Four last season. South Carolina has been on a tear. We have LSU. Tennessee is back in the mix. We have Notre Dame coming up. We have TCU. We have Duke. I'm going to call out the two teams that Ariana and Aaliyah are on. There are these great programs who are taking a new age style of basketball when it comes to coaching, when it comes to system, and it comes to how you're letting your players play, that maybe Geno does need to adapt a little bit. He will always get that talent, but how he coaches that talent, how he empowers that talent, how he finds the right buttons. Sometimes being so tough on a player, sometimes throwing them under the bus, sometimes doing all these things doesn't press the right buttons that you're hoping that it would.
The next generation of stars is here, and they're playing a whole new ball game. Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise is just the beginning. With the 2025 WNBA draft on the horizon, all eyes are on players like Paige Bueckers. Will she find her groove and live up to the hype? The big question now is, can the old guard keep up? Ariana's future success hinges on his ability to adapt. Will he embrace the new style of play that's captivating fans and driving the sport forward? Or will he stick to his guns and risk being left behind? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, women's basketball is entering an exciting new era. And whether you're a coach, player, or fan, you better be ready for the ride. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.